Welcome on into another episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. I'm Jason Ashcraft. I'm joined this week by Coach and Cliff. And the international break is over. It's done and dusted. We're ready for MLS action. But I'll tell you what, it's more of the same from FC Cincinnati. They go into the break with a loss to, I would say, an inferior team, but who knows after the way that this season's been going. A 4-2 loss at Red Bull, New York. I forever and always want to call them the Metro Stars. I really wish they bring back that name. And here to talk about it are a couple of great guys. First off, we got Cliff rocking the Lamborghini Kevin Denke background. Cliff, how you doing, buddy? And you are somehow muted. We'll come back to Cliff. Coach, how was your Easter, man?
My Easter was long and busy, but it was good. It was good overall. Other than, that getting those updates on my phone Saturday night where I couldn't watch the game because I had stuff going on with work, but getting those updates and seeing goal after goal after goal against FC Cincinnati. As usual, I was prepared to be miserable when I watched the match, and I came out of it thinking like that actually wasn't as bad as I thought. So that's usually how it works for me. So overall, I'm doing okay.
Exactly. And Cliff, let's try this again. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm back. I spent Saturday evening at Gilligan's with the fun crew at of the Vanguard, enjoying Gilligan's fine beer and understanding what Irish fries means. But it was a good group. I couldn't help but notice throughout the game this big green expanse on the lower half of the screen, and all the action was up top. And how often Apple had a chance to advertise, Calgon baths or bourbon to the Cincinnati fans. Because I was like, how am I going to come down after this match? It was so tense. FCC's defense was, like a teenager learning to drive a manual transmission, lots of grinding gears and jerky movements every time they tried to shift from attack to defend. It was really, it was kind of a mess.
It certainly was, and we will talk about that. But right now, we're going to get into our weekly segment, Hot and Cold. Cliff, I'm going to start off with you, man. What is your hot and cold of the week?
I always like to see a goal in the run of play, and with Denke laying off to Pavel Buka, it wasn't the Thor throw ball from Hagelin that just somehow finds a stumbling player and put something in by luck. It was a good run of play goal, executed well, as a result of, I guess what we're looking at is a chemistry experiment with the form change and other things. So that was encouraging to see that goal.
And you're cold for the week.
The whole team. I really feel like the team came back from break, and I had this feeling as soon as I booted up my laptop in the morning and looked at the Vegas FanDuel spread, and they often have the home team winning. So I often look at, well, how far are we on the plus side of the money line? And that usually dictates some doom. But looking at how the team was coming back from international play, and then we were going to miss Miles, didn't have Dado. So a lot of things. And then when I saw the new formation, I thought to myself, how did you do that with this short time frame? With the players just coming back into this new system. And, I'm just a piano player. I did coach for 5 years and played for 11, coached for 11, played for 5, but, and I often don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm glad Coach is here and we can get some good analytics in on it. But it just felt like, to me, the whole team wasn't on that field. I just didn't feel it like they were there.
Yeah. Well, it certainly was it was an odd game. I kind of came away a little bit like Coach, feeling like, it wasn't so bad, but in the moment there were times where I was like, oh boy, this is not going to be great. Coach, what is your hot and cold for the week?
Yeah, for the hot, I had to dig deep a little bit because even though, like I said, it wasn't as bad as I was expecting, I didn't still see a ton of really great stuff. But what I did really enjoy was the quick one-touch passing that I saw. Specifically, there were a lot of moments when FCC was able to get from the back to the front really quickly. And I've been begging them. I've been shouting from my seats up in the nosebleeds for them to play one-touch passing through the midfield or into Kevin Danke, into a target where what I would call like in, out, wide, or up, back, through. You put it into a center forward, one-touch pass underneath. That player either takes off with the ball or passes it through to someone else. And they did that a number of times. There was a sweet play that led to Ender having a run at goal where he should have passed it to Tom Barlow, but he didn't. He hit bad shot from a bad angle. But the play leading up to that was a ball into Kevin Danke and a sweet little one-touch back heel that sent Ender scampering through. And I think if they keep doing that and keep generating that kind of XG off of transition chances, which they won't be able to generate that against everybody, but if they continue that kind of play, I think things will get better. But something that really has to get better is my cold. And that is, I hate picking on individual players, but Brian Ramirez, man, he shared a large part of blame for all of the first three Red Bull goals, just falling asleep and letting his man run by him and get the ball. Even the free kick that Forsberg scored, the foul happened because Ramirez fell asleep and his guy ran past him and then passed the ball into zone 14 where the alleged foul happened. And Albright and Noonan and company pinned a lot of hopes on the one signing of any note this year in the offseason, Brian Ramirez coming in and not only giving the team a little offense going forward, but also being defensively sound over there. And so far, he hasn't given much going forward, and he has been pretty poor in defense. So hopefully it's a speed of play and getting adjusted to a new league sort of thing. But I really hope that the left side of FC Cincinnati's defense can get better with Brian Ramirez because there's nobody to back him up.
Exactly. My hot for the week was Pavel Buka. We'll probably talk a little bit about him later, but it was really nice to see him get on the board with a really nice strike. I really liked what I saw from Kevin Dinke too. I think he had a few good looks. We kind of talked about it offline, Coach, about people maybe shooting when they should have passed. There were a few of those in this match. But, one thing that Kevin Dinke brings is he is able to string some passes together from time to time. And that build up for Buka's goal, I really love that. I'd love to see more of that. My cold of the week, and this kind of goes back to what you're saying about Brian Ramirez, but the defense in general, and especially our center backs, just did not look good in this game, in my opinion. I don't know how much weight you want to give FOTMOB statistics, but if you look at the FOTMOB statistics and the ratings for each player, our center backs were below a 6. Kyle Smith not doing well in this game. He did have a brace. We'll talk about his brace. Matt Miazga 5.7 and Nick Hagelin a 5.9. Just not what you would like to see from a team. One of the things that we always talked about in previous years with the defense was good, was the offense where we're struggling, but we're struggling the opposite way this year. Jay Yates, aside from Echenike and Obi, the whole team seems to have taken a step backwards from last year. Could the coaches we lost in the offseason explain that? There's obviously something going on. I'll just open up the floor to that. I think that's a really good question from Jay.
I've been very vocal about that across social media. I feel like everybody's nooning out and everybody's this particular player is terrible. But to me, the switch of the form is an admission that your system wasn't working, that you're trying something else because you need to. But I really think losing Kinnear was questionable for me. He has so much rich experience, and how quickly did he find a new slot to fit in? I have no idea how much influence or what kind of influence Brent Utley has on the team. None. And we don't have that transparency as to what his contribution might be. But it's clear to me that it's not one player. I've said that as much as, I think Ramirez, who looks a lot like Roland Gift from Fine Young Cannibals. So I think he's driving coach crazy. But I think we can point to Evander also kind of being flat, Denke having his struggles all across the board. But I definitely think it's a coaching transition. I'm not really willing to say that. And that's what I was saying before about expectations coming out of preseason with these new players. You also have new coaching, new system. But my question was Utley trying to go the way that Kinnear authored or Noonan and Kinnear authored. We just don't have that transparency.
Yeah,
so I'm not
going to
really,
come down hard on the other side of that. I think an
Okay.
assistant coach change would at that level should make little to no difference. Those
Okay.
guys should be, and it doesn't mean I'm right because Kinnear might have been driving that ship, but really those assistant coaches, Kenny and Dom, should have been just putting Pat Noonan's ideas through their own lens out onto the field. For me, I think the people taking a step back is down to a combination of two things. First of all, last year, they never were forced to work through the issues that they were clearly having because they were getting out of tight spots with banger goals. We talked about this a lot, these low XG goals that were going in, or the other team missing high XG chances. A lot was made last year about the XG differential being so poor, but FCC still winning. So the team never had to work through those ball movement issues that they clearly had. And now this year, that's not happening. And instead of working through those issues like a team that is doing it for the first time, they are panicking and snatching at chances. And you can tell they're nervy out there. And it's because they're used to winning. And now all of a sudden they're not. And they're like, well, what? This isn't how this goes. We make the shot and then we win 4-2. We don't lose 4-2, guys. How did we get 2.8 XG and not score or whatever? It's like, so I think they're snatching at chances. And so there is a coaching issue, but the coaching issue I don't think is so much down to tactics as it is, that murkier, squishier part of coaching, which is man management, which is finding a way to give your guys the confidence to go out there and make mistakes in a positive way and play hard and get cards because you're playing so hard, not because you're doing stupid stuff. That sort of a thing. And so there is something going on there, but I don't think it's an assistant coach. Of course, I would love for that to be wrong, because if the assistant coach was the only thing that was the problem with this team, like, shoot, get a new one and let's go win the cup.
And then that kind of brings it back to Noonan, as you're saying, if we're going to take that as the probable case. But even Hagelin at the end of the game said something along the lines of, the offense has to hold the ball, and they were getting burnt when the collapse happens. And we've been here before, all the way back to Yap's Dom. I can recall numerous times where, I was afraid of us taking a corner kick because it was inevitably going to just get flushed down the field into our goal. So there was a lot of collapse, and we had fewer smooth transitions than a middle school PowerPoint presentation. Just a lot of abrupt slide changes and foul not founds. There was just a lot not there on the collapse. So difficult stuff.
All right, we're going to take a moment real quick to talk about our sponsor, Apollo Home. Just like FC Cincinnati, the weather in Cincinnati can flip-flop between hot and cold. FC has been a little bit more cold than hot lately, but it's never too late to get your furnace checked out by Apollo Home. Or if you're ready for spring, give them a call, and they can take a look at your AC as well to make sure you're ready for the warmer weather. And the week we're having here, you might need both. I had to turn the heater on today. For a limited time, take advantage of Apollo's spring deal. A new AC unit for as low as $99 a month. Stay cold when it's hot. Stay hot when it's cold with Apollo Home. And a big thanks to them for being a sponsor of Cincinnati Soccer Talk for several years now. All right, let's dive into Red Bull New York. Let's go into the starting lineup for FC Cincinnati. And we're going to talk a little bit about this formation because I think it's an interesting discussion to have. But it's listed as a 3-5-2. Evan Loro gets the starting goal with Roman Celentano nursing an injury. Your back three was Kyle Smith on the right, Matt Miazga in the middle, Nick Hagelin on the left. And then you had the wingbacks of Ender Echenike on the right and Brian Ramirez on the left. Your midfield was Pavel Buka, Samuel Guidi, and Evander. And up top, you had Tom Barlow and Kevin Denke. Now, Coach, I put this in the rundown, but a thing that I noticed, and of course, I am the least ball knowledgeable person on this entire podcast, but it looked like a 3-5-2, but it played a little bit like a four-man back line, in my opinion. We saw a few hints of that, and I think, at least from the standpoint of Ender Echenike, I think that helped him out a little bit to have a little bit more help in the back, but maybe I'm not seeing it exactly that same way. What did you see with the lineup, Coach?
No, I think that you're pretty much right. I think that what they did differently is they still attacked in that same sort of formation where it basically shifts to a 3-2-5. You know, those wing backs get high and wide. You have the two forwards, you have a Vander high, and you end up with just basically the three center backs, the two holding midfielders, and then five up top. That's the way they attacked, which is how they always attacked. The difference was in defense, where Brian Ramirez was always responsible for tracking all the way back and becoming more like a traditional left back. Kyle Smith pushed out to the right, and they became a four-man back line, which allowed Ender Echenike to stay up the pitch and defend a little more narrowly. But then when he was getting his touches, his first touch would not come in the defensive third. It would come in the middle or even the attacking third because he was already up there. So it did free him up a little bit. But on the other side, the hard thing was Tom Barlow never played like a traditional forward. Really, Evander stayed up top like a forward, and Tom Barlow in defense was more like a left midfielder, and he was tucked way inside. It was more like a 4-4-2 diamond, if I'm being honest. Like he had that shuttler role, but he's a center forward by trade. And lucky for FCC, he works so hard, even when he's not doing well at that. He was, putting pressure on the defense and doing pretty good things from that position. But you could tell he was a little bit of a fish out of water playing a midfield role when he's used to being a forward.
Yeah. Cliff, you mentioned Pat Noonan maybe making a little bit of change. And I think I'll give him props because I think a lot of us have been very critical about, same old. And that I have felt like MLS has figured it out when it comes to FC Cincinnati and this style of play. Do you think maybe Pat was trying a little bit of something new to spice things up?
Definitely. I think the Pavel Buka goal is actually indicative of that. I think everybody was ordered forward. Let's go get goals. And so, you'll have that. If you order everybody forward and they're all offensively minded, especially Brian Ramirez. Brian Ramirez played for, I think it's Kumbaya and then LDU Quito. Those are all four backs. And so, if you're leaving three back, he might be used to systems. He comes from a 4-4-2 or 4-5-1. And he's probably used to people behind him. But as coach was talking, I'm thinking about Barreal and I'm thinking about Orgiano, who were called upon pretty much to blaze a path up and down that left side all throughout Noonan's tenure. So it's almost a staple. And so to your point, the teams might be expecting that if we're not switching it out. And Brian is not used to having to do that. I don't think he's ever had to do that. Maybe we could say it's part and parcel with the position, and you should just be aware. But yeah, I definitely think there was an offensive push, probably to keep the old trees in the back healthy and at home, and certainly not injured again. But I think it backfired when we collapsed on transition.
Yeah. We're going to put a pin in the formation for now because we'll talk a little bit about that some more in the post-mortem for the game. So FC Cincinnati falls behind in the 12th minute. Julian Hall opened the scoring with what I think was just a big defensive breakdown. And honestly, I think this might have been, we talked about it in the pregame here. That was really the only goal that was like, that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, and I think this goal was down to pretty much the different formation, that defensive look, because you can see Nick Hagland is not prepared to get out and cover Ramirez in behind. And if he was playing in a back three there with Ramirez as a wing back, there'd be an additional center back, and he would be pushed out a little further naturally. Not to mention he was playing on the left, which he's not used to. And that's really what happened with that goal. Is one, Ramirez got caught flat-footed, and the ball was just directly in behind him, and he did that thing that is a big no-no for defenders, where the man runs by you on one side and the ball goes by you on the other side and connects behind you, right? Yeah. It's like, you can't let that happen. So his positioning was not great. But then Hags should have been able to get out and cover, but he was a little bit late, and then he went, and then one touch, just the speed of play just beat him. And you can even tell from Matt Miazga, if you watch that play back, he's tracking the play and just kind of like running hard, and then all of a sudden that touch beats Hagland, and you see him go like, oh, poop. And he tries to kick it into sprint to get Julian Hall. But at that point, he's a yard off the pace. So should he have been done better and gotten back? Yeah, but you could tell he was just kind of expecting Hagland to clean up that ball in behind. But Hagland's position wasn't quite right because he's not used to playing in a four back there. So 2 minutes in and you're already punished for the tweak you made. I think that happens sometimes.
Well, I think we should shout out a little bit to Julian Hall. The guy he's 18 years old. He's played 6 matches and he has 5 goals. It's kind of unbelievable. He is definitely phenomenal, and I think he really has that clinical finishing that we're missing when we do have those high quality chances. And I thought it was interesting, just to add on to your previous question, Jason, about Pat's tactics. I mean, at the end of the game, he called it, probably the best attacking performance of the year. So he's kind of leaning into the fact that, hey, we're trying to score goals now. So I honestly, I think they can turn it around. I really do. I think you've got a sample size of one game, but you saw good things out of that. It's probably, hopefully, a matter of what to do on collapse, who's got assignments, positioning, as Coach mentioned. That's all going to be important because we're not getting swept by Toronto. Please, God.
Hopefully not. 5 minutes later, FC Cincinnati does level it up. Kevin Denke sprints forward and is able to find Pavel Buka at the top of the 18. Pavel with a really nice shot. Cliff, what do you think about Pavel getting FC Cincinnati back into the game?
Well, first and foremost, I love the fact that Kevin Denke plays team ball. He does, right? He's not your typical, I don't remember Brenner doing a lot of laying off the ball. He's gonna, and as much as I would love to see one touch shots from Kevin Denke into the net, which could have easily happened then, it was really nice to see him artfully lay that off. He does a lot of, I would say, delicate, nuanced things from midfield. He's not, just this brute force sort of striker. So that was good to see. But obviously, Pavel Buka, he's probably my targeted jersey that I'd like to purchase before they got rid of Kubo. And now I can't get one of those. Buka, I have said on the previous broadcast, he's like, to me, he is the heart and soul. He's been around. And I think when I saw Gidi paired with him, that was concerning a little bit, but I think it's Gidi's 4th or 5th start alongside him. And so maybe he just needs to continue to run. But Gidi is far more offensively minded than Obi or Anunga. So that was concerning, but always good to see Pavel, get some payoff for his hard work.
Kevin Denke with, I think I've read this right, 6 goals in all competitions this year and 3 assists, which you always like to see your top striker willing to pass the ball around, like you said. So we mentioned 2.8 XG. That was what it was for FC Cincinnati at the end of this match. I thought that the Orange and Blue actually looked offensively. They looked pretty threatening several times throughout the match. There was a sitter that Ender completely botched. That Kevin had a few, and you're always going to miss a few shots. But Coach, I think for me, that at least on the offensive side of things, it didn't seem that bad. It was a couple of shots that went the wrong way for the other team or the right way for the other team. But offensively, you would normally think 2 goals, you're in a pretty good shape to win this game.
Yeah, and I think I'll go even one more than that. The number of chances they left on the table that ended up not being great chances, but could have been or should have been, but for one pass. There was a breakaway when Evander had the ball and he tried to square it to Denke and he overhit it. So then Denke had to run wide, and then Denke tried to chop it back to Evander and he overhit it, and then it went past Evander. So no shots on that goal, even though they were in on goal 2-on-1. There was the ender where the play I talked about off the top in my What's Hot, where he goes scampering through and he could have rolled it across for Barlow to smash it into the net, Julian Hall style. And instead he takes a touch wide and takes a really low XG shot. It's like 0.05 because he was so wide. It was a terrible angle and he hits it right at the goalkeeper. So it's like that. Not only did they have some good opportunities where they didn't quite finish, they also had some decent opportunities that could have been great had they made the right decision. And you have to hope that guys like Ender that are young, that are still getting kind of used to playing, this is his first full season in MLS. Let's not forget he came in halfway through last year. Guys like that, you'd have to imagine as they watch the game film that they start to get a little more used to, okay, I have to take a look, I have to find that guy, I have to do these things. And you have Kevin Denke, like you said, leading by example, trying to bring others into the play. So hopefully it becomes like a team ethos, and it's something that Pat Noonan and the staff can really build around.
Emil Forsberg absolutely had a great match for New York. He got the second goal for the Red Bulls as they headed into halftime with a free kick. Cliff, there was nothing Evan Loro could do about that one.
Very painful. That whole sequence was painful, and we talked about this just before the podcast. I understand that the second goal should have been, but the whole swirl of everything, the foul in and of itself, to me, felt like a flop, and we were all stunned. The Vanguard and I at Gilligan's, like it really seemed like Forsberg wasn't touched. So how he got the foul in the first place really was terrible. And then you've got Victor Rivas. With Matt's first game back with him together, if I was Matt, I would have bought like 40 pizzas and just stacked them up right outside the ref's door. But and then to get the retake, it was just insult to injury. It was really not cool. I've said it before. Forsberg, if you watch him, he plays us. He just looks excited. He looks like he's really looking forward to whooping us. And I hate him, which means he's good. Usually I can't stand guys that are cocky and have a run on us. But yeah, that was not a fun moment at all to watch.
Man, oddly enough, I think, guys like Forsberg that sit in that hole but behind the defensive midfielders in front of the center backs usually really give FCC a lot of trouble because the center backs are a little bit slow and they're never sure exactly when to pinch on those guys and when to drop off. But I thought FCC did a really good job against Forsberg. He had the free kick goal. Other than that, he had one key pass and he had two other shots on goal that were really low XG chances. So he didn't really influence the game. I mean, he played well. I'm not saying that FCC completely limited him or anything, but I thought he would have much more influence. It really turned out to be Cade Cowell and playing out wide and getting in behind Brian Ramirez over and over and over that proved the difference on the night.
Let's talk a little bit about Brian Ramirez because we'll kind of wrap up talking about this match. But Brian Ramirez, again, take this with a grain of salt, 6.4 rating on FOTMob. He had a yellow card. And I don't like to single out a single player, but he was coming into this year as kind of the big signing. He's had experience playing wing back. He's had experience playing, I think, left back in his club time. You think that he's going to be a versatile player. It seems to me like the Goss theorem of needing a year to get used to MLS is really hitting this guy hard.
Yeah, but even with that, I agree completely with you. But even with that, like the mistakes that he made as a coach, I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, when the ball is passed away from you're on the ball and they pass it away, and you don't follow the runner, you turn to watch the ball. That's not league. That's not. I mean, I could send my 9-year-old son out there and he wouldn't be able to keep up with the guy, but he would know when my guy passes it, I'm running with my guy. I'm not watching the ball. So I don't, those are the thing. It's the mentally tuning out that is bothering me. And so I'm just hoping that when you have a guy like trying to learn the language, trying to communicate with unfamiliar teammates, that there's a lot going on. So he's overthinking everything and hopefully he'll be able to settle in over time. And that will be the Goss theorem. And just in the spirit of not being too hard on him, he also had a couple of pretty decent plays on offense. There was a play where he cut it in onto his right foot as a left back. Like, we never see that, and dropped a ball right onto Kevin Denke's head. And it was just the angle, and Denke couldn't really get purchase on the header, but it could have been a really good chance. He was sitting there in between the center backs, and he just kind of couldn't get enough on it to direct it onto frame. And right before that, he picked out Kevin Denke on the back post about 5 minutes earlier, and Denke hit it into the side netting. So it's like there are flashes of what he could be, but man, getting there to what he could be can't happen soon enough for this team.
No doubt. That position, as we've said, I mean, all the way through Lucas Angle, Barrial, Orellano has been so almost a staple of Noonan's system. You just wonder if that remains, if we're going to always ask that. You see that left wing back on one goal line and then the other goal line so often in this system. In a moment. So you bring up a good point about different country, different language and communication too. So you could imagine the overwhelm when they're whooping you up and down that line and you're used to somebody being back there and nobody's back there. Or you're supposed to be back there. So it's probably overwhelming.
We'll wrap this up. Kyle Smith, he got the worst possible brace you could possibly get, own goal, and then a goal of his own later in the match. And then Red Bull sealed it up in the 90th with a goal by Mohamed Sofo, and FC Cincinnati loses 4-2 in Harrison, New Jersey. That brings us to our Go Beyond Player of the Week. Guys, I did not have one. I honestly didn't think anyone deserved it, if I'm being real, but you both picked Pavel Buka as yours. Cliff, I'll let you throw out, give me your reasoning for that.
I just feel like I'm a broken record. I'm rarely on this podcast, but when I am, I shout about Pavel Buka. His just work rate, his work ethic. He's also, I believe, about the same size I am, so I can vicariously live through him as a soccer player with a beer gut. But he does remind me of how I used to play. Just very, very hard, smart, often positionally, and I think he's being actually called upon to do a lot more. I at times, I don't remember seeing him out wide as often in past seasons as I'm seeing him now drift out there to do something. So that's the reason. He's just really working hard. Great to see him get a goal.
Coach.
But I'm sure whatever coach's reasons are going to be far more intelligent than mine. I feel like Dennis Miller of the NFL broadcast.
I think Buka, first of all, my love for Buka, I think, is pretty well documented too. Like that under the radar player who just seems to do all of the little things right. But the reason why I decided he was the Go Beyond Player of the Year is actually not that he was that good. It's just that he was so much better than he has been. I've been really disappointed with him early in the season, not because he's been terrible, but just because he was so good last year so often. And I was expecting him to take a step forward and be even a little better, a little more leadership on the team, things like that. When you start getting international call-ups and things, you need to take that next step at your club, with your club team. And with this match, it was the first time I thought that he really started to find space intelligently again and really get on the ball in a meaningful way. And I think a lot of that had to do with the formation. I talked about them defending in a 4-4-2, almost like a diamond. Well, the point of that diamond was often Pavel Buka. So he was kind of playing as an attacking midfielder when defending. So he's not going forward like that, but he's already in a position, ahead of the defense where when that ball is won back, often that first pass goes to him. And he is the one looking to play on the half turn and get it forward. And I thought he did that pretty well. And in fact, FCC's one goal that he scored, he kind of helped start that playoff doing exactly that. And he didn't take a touch on the ball and it kind of got tackled away to Guidi, and then Guidi fed it through. But it was his ability to kind of squeeze up the seams, is how I say it, kind of leak out behind the opponent's midfield. So when that ball's turned over, he can get it going forward quickly.
Well, that was your Go Beyond Exercise Player of the Week. That is sponsored by Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a Cincinnati physical therapy and fitness business that helps people of all ages stay active and fit. They also work with local MLS and MLS Next Pro athletes, and they are the official physical therapy provider of the Manu Ledesma Academy UPSL team. See how they can elevate your health and fitness at gobeyondexercise.com. Fellas, let's kind of do a little post-mortem of Red Bull New York, because I want to talk about formation, and we talked about it a little bit already, but I think one of the things that is possible. Oh yeah, real quick, let's give this a shout out, because Pavel Buka possibly going to the World Cup for his national team.
Oh, yeah.
So that every kid's dream growing up playing soccer to just make it to the World Cup. And we're going to have a Pavel Buka sighting. We're going to have a Jurgen Lakadia sighting at the World Cup as well, which I'm stoked about.
Good call out by Sensei Tevitz there.
Yeah. The Cabbage Sensei speaks the truth. I think that Pat was wanting to try 4 in the back, but because of the injury, Miles Robinson's injured and on a red card suspension, and your potential left wing and Dado Valenzuela is also suspended for a red card. So I'm thinking that there was hints of that, but he just didn't have the personnel to really commit to 4 at the back.
I think in the modern game, almost every team that defends with four in the back still attacks with three in the back. You know, you either split the center backs wide and a defensive midfielder drops in between them, or you do the pulley system where one outside back goes forward and the other stays in, or you do the system that we see the U.S. men's national team play often, where the one side, one of the outside backs, is just really always going to tuck in as a center back. You see that when Joe Scally is out there on the right, he just tucks in every single time. So I don't think it's necessarily that. I was confused because I liked the idea, but you talk about the personnel and I'm like, this is where it went all wrong. Nick Hagland has never been good in a back four. When he was outstanding with Toronto, it was in three center back set. When he's been outstanding with SEC, same thing. When he first came over from Toronto and played in the Jaap Stam systems and in in those systems, he was dreadful. And we don't remember that because he's been so good for us lately. But he needs that extra cover because he likes to be really aggressive. And sometimes he gets that wrong and he needs cover behind him. And then playing Tom Barlow as basically a left-sided midfielder, when you have a guy like Mboma Dem, who I get, he's a younger player and he's unproven, but put the guys, instead of jamming these round pegs into square holes all the time, put like the lesser used square peg in the proper hole. And if it doesn't work, then switch formations. I think the idea to change the formation is a good one, but not with that personnel. Like, why not give a guy like Flores a chance? He's much more suited to play back there in a back four than Nick Hagland. Why not give a guy like Mboma Dem a chance with Dado being out, those sorts of things. That's the part that I don't get.
I was curious. Well, I was interested that Alvis Powell did not get more time in the match on Saturday. I thought for sure, you're missing some key guys. He's been known to play center back from time to time. Cliff, what do you think about playing a back four? And also, were you a little surprised to not see Alvis Powell out there longer than what he was?
I was surprised he didn't start. I wasn't expecting Kyle Smith at all over there, but I definitely expected him to be out there longer. Didn't have red card Powell on my bingo card for the game. That was really different. The back four, like I said, I think that's a great change, but coach is right. And I don't understand why. It sounds four people back sounds better, but it has always been a problem. And in this match in particular, Miazga and Hagland often resemble deer in front of your car. They're like, are you going to go? Am I going to go? They were really you could see the decision-making happening. I like the four back, but the hard part about watching on television versus being at the game is you can't see what the midfield's doing when the ball's floating up. And that's what I really wonder when we were pushing forward and being offensive, how often the midfield was not positioned collapse and thus the defense was getting flogged. I just couldn't see the positioning because the camera angle was never there. Or if I may have not been looking at it because I was throwing something in the restaurant. So out of frustration, but that's partying with Cliff.
Well, guys, I think we'll put a pin on it for Red Bull New York. The one last thing I do want to say, and this is something that I have been putting out on social media. I've talked about it in the chat, and I think this is a big problem that honestly, when I think about it more and more, it feels I'm going to go ahead and say it. It feels spoony when I think about it. And that is that FC Cincinnati has given up 15 goals in league play. That's not even counting just getting absolutely trounced by Tigres in CONCACAF. Something's got to give with the defense because that was what Pat Noonan's teams were known for. You were not going to give up goals. You were going to a few years ago they could score a lot, but you could eke out a 1-0 win if you needed to. Is it the fact that we were missing Miazga or he missed a step or that Hagland's missing a step? Like I am baffled by how easy it is for teams to score and score a lot on this team. And coach is muted.
I muted myself to talk instead of unmuting myself. I hit the button, but in the wrong direction. I don't want to be the analytics guy because I'm normally much more, like analytics support what I'm already seeing. And so maybe that is where I'm coming in. But the thing you have to understand is, as much as it sucks to say, is FCC's gotten pretty unlucky. They are tied for second in terms of giving up more goals than their XG would say they should give up, meaning they've only allowed 9 expected goals and they've given up 15. There's only one other team that has that, which is Montreal. Every other team has maybe given up at most 3 more than expected. So they've gotten some bad luck. I mean, just looking at this game, they gave up, according to FOTMob, only 2 XG. Only 2 is a decent amount of XG, but 0.77 of that was the Hall chance, which was a tap in, right? That's a PK chance. Other than that, they didn't have, like, basically the rule of thumb is if it's 0.15 XG or higher, it's a quality chance. They only had one other quality chance in the match. Everything else was lower than 0.15 XG. Other than, there was one 0.26 shot that was a pretty good chance, but that was after, or it was hit right at Leroux, and it was like, really, the guy should have done better with it. But the point that I'm trying to get at is, last year, FC Cincinnati did not generate a lot of XG, and they scored bangers. This year, they're not giving up as much XG as it would seem, and other teams are scoring bangers against them. So the hope is that doesn't last all year. The hope is that it comes back to the middle. Now, 9 XG through 6 matches is still more than I want my team giving up. But their expected points, if you believe in that stuff, which through 6 matches, you're getting to the point where it's starting to level out, where you can start to believe in those analytics, would put them at 6th in the Eastern Conference, which is still not where we want to be, but not as bad as they are now. So I just think with the personnel changing, with trying to tweak the things to get the offense going more, and on top of that, getting a little unlucky, it just looks really bad, when in reality, it's only been fairly bad. So that's
Edmund Taylor from Facebook says, I feel like we're having major issues turning the ball over the midfield and putting a slower defense into a tough spot. We either seem to miss a critical pass that turns into a break, or wingbacks not coming back to protect.
Or just flat giveaways, just flat giveaways. Yeah. And he's echoing what I just said earlier. And that was so frustrating, because on the television, it's hard sometimes because the camera either is panned forward or panned back. So you really don't know if something's fast slotted through where Buka, and it's not always the midfielders either. It's people who are in the midfield or should be in the midfield. You were mentioning other teams, though. We're not Orlando. They've given up 23 goals. They have a goal differential of -18. And all I can say is don't fire El Pupo. Pay him. And we're, you know what? We're not also Philadelphia. And they're at the bottom. They currently are holding the spoon, and they don't have a win. They don't have a tie. So we are at least 5 positions better. And it's really weird. If you look at the standings, it's almost like it's flipped from, say, 2023. All the teams have done this. So it's really interesting. But in terms of goal scoring, I feel like that could be one of 2 things. With what Coach said about the XG, and even doing the comparison from last year, you hope it's a switch. You hope it's a light switch. You hope it's a mental switch. You hope it's a week together after international break with everybody here. Everybody gets on the field. The most frustrating thing about this team for me is we never get the top product on the field. Somebody's out, somebody's injured, somebody had an accumulation, and I just want that top product on the field. I think we may have had it for the first couple of games out of the gate, but it's going to be interesting to see if they can turn it around for Toronto.
Yeah. Cliff, it's great you mentioned the rest of the league. So let's take a quick look ahead and talk a little bit around the league. Looking at your Eastern Conference standings, Nashville is top of the East with 13 points, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. NYCFC, Charlotte, and Inter Miami all with 11. Then you got Chicago, Toronto, and the Red Bulls with 10. FC Cincinnati is technically out of a playoff spot right now. They're ranked 10th. With 6 points, the same as New England. And then Columbus, Atlanta, Montreal, and Orlando City rounding out the East. LAFC is the head of the West. And that's all I'm going to talk about the West. There's a simulation right now. Guys, is there anything that's kind of surprising you about the league as a whole, as we kind of we're almost to the quarter point of the season. Anything that kind of jumps out at you as surprising as the season has kind of started?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm surprised that we talk about new players and all of this stuff. I was surprised that Nashville hit the ground running as well as they did. I thought they'd be good. I thought it would take longer for them to get this good. I'm not surprised on NYCFC. I thought people were way down on them. I'm surprised that more people didn't have them being good. And then I guess from there, my biggest surprise is FC Cincinnati. I thought Philly would be bad. I thought Orlando would be bad. I honestly did. I did not think FC Cincinnati would be this bad. And I don't think they are this bad. I think they'll turn around. Whereas Philly, I've watched a few of their games. Orlando, I've watched a few of their games. I don't think it's getting better for them. I'm not necessarily convinced they'll win the spoon. But I don't see them making a big push and turning it around. Whereas like FC Cincinnati literally could just start playing a little bit better and turn around some of these results and be, a lower end playoff team, in 2 or 3 matches, and then thinking like, oh, and we can push on if this player or if this person takes the next step or if Evander actually starts scoring goals or whatever.
Cliff, what's your biggest surprise of the MLS season so far?
Yeah, I'm with you. As much as, I think one thing, as bad a season as they've had and a run of things, it's nice to see DC United come up off the mat. I don't know if that's maybe not an important positive, but I like to see parity. I don't like to see juggernauts. I'm not an Inter Miami guy. I don't like that one Goliath that runs around and beats everyone. I like to see parity because that means that you're going to be entertained when you're going to any MLS game. I think that's really important. It's just really interesting. I'm very surprised at how it's almost flipped. Top dwellers of the table of the past 2 seasons are now at the bottom and staring down further. So it's really interesting, the shakeups that have happened. And of course the other surprise was Michael Bradley coaching New York and running into him. And I think he made some good calls the other night. His sub pattern was pretty good, and he's obviously coaching the young team very, very well. So that was kind of surprising to me because you didn't know. I had no idea how well that would go, but it looks to be going quite well.
My biggest surprise so far, and it really shouldn't have surprised me, but if you listen to our season preview, I said that I didn't think Real Salt Lake, my former team, you can see my RSL license plate up there. I didn't think that they would make the playoffs, and they did surprisingly well. If you know anything about them, they had a rash of injuries. They're still managing to be in 4th place in the West, and they got Diego Luna back and he came out like a house of fire, scoring a goal against Sporting Kansas City in a 3-1 win. And guys, I tell you, if he is not going to be Diego Luna is not going to be playing in MLS much longer. If he makes it to the end of the year in the United States, I'm going to be very surprised because he has got a trip to Europe written all over him. And he's not just because he's for RSL, but he's probably one of my favorite players to watch in this league. FC Cincinnati gets back in action this weekend, I believe Saturday against Toronto. We'll let Jeff Debbitz handle a lot of the preview in his wonderful podcast, Jersey Swap. If you're not listening to that, you really should. He does a great job. I don't know who he's going to have on, but I'm sure it's going to be great. Toronto got a 1-0 win over FC Cincinnati a few weeks ago. Fellas, just a quick temp check. I'll start with you, Cliff. Temp check of where you are with FC Cincinnati so far, and then give me your score prediction for Toronto.
Wow. For Toronto, I'm going to go ahead and say Noonan's had enough. He's going to fix this. And I think it's so clear. It's clear to most of us watching the game, the pattern. We see Ramirez. We see the change. Miles is coming back. Is Dado available? I think he going to
should be unless
he's got his Swiss Army knife guy back. Although I kind of missed the one we had in Kubo, but I think a staggered pivot in the midfield with at least one of the midfielders pushing forward and somebody hanging back is probably key to dealing with Toronto. But the one thing with Toronto, whenever we say Walker Zimmerman, I get really nervous because he's a very good defender. And I think the guy that needs to solve that for us is actually our wide guys, the Brian Ramirez. You got to draw Zimmerman out of the center of the box to cover the wings, and then you leave that hole for Denke or Barlow to exploit. So hopefully we can put that together. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win. I'm going to go with a 1-goal win again.
I will always take 3 points on the road. Coach, Toronto playing at home, and Josh Sargent made his debut last week or this past Saturday and had a pretty good game. What are you feeling?
I think that if you want to look on the positive side, I think FCC, the offense starting to round into form a little bit over the last few matches, not even just this past match, but they scored against Montreal, they scored against Tigres. The defense has not been there, but I think that it will get going. And Raheem Edwards got a red card in their last match, so he is a pretty dangerous player going forward that they're not going to have. Walker Zimmerman left injured, so who knows? Even if he plays, maybe he doesn't get a full week of training in. So there are some good signs. That said, FCC has not proven yet that they can go play good anywhere, at home, on the road. Miles Robinson, I think if he is healthy, that'll make a huge difference. And it's sounding like maybe he will be. So there's just so much up in the air right now. I would not be at all surprised to see this be like a 2-2 draw. But if you look at the metrics, all the numbers say in terms of past performance so far that Toronto should beat us pretty easily, beat FCC, 2-0, 2-1, 3-1, something like that. So I won't be surprised if that happens. I hate doing predictions because number one, mostly I'm just terrible at it. But number two, there's just, especially at this point on a Monday, I'll give you my prediction when the lineups come out. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good.
They do have a probability of Toronto winning by 44-29 right now as the crow flies. The thing I don't understand, gentlemen, because somebody please explain to me, I'm seeing a 1 p.m. start
on Saturday.
On Saturday.
They're staggering starts this year. Which I like personally, because
then you can get home and watch.
When you can get home and watch, or you can spend your entire day watching MLS. I love it.
Yeah, that is nice. That is nice. I just wonder how it affects the players. I like, are you ready to go at 1 p.m. or are you ready to go at 7:30? It is going to be a beautiful day though. It's looking like 70 degrees and perfect.
I do know when I was athletic, so this would have been 30 years ago when I was in high school.
Same.
I preferred middle of the day. That was my preferred time to do any exercise. Later in the evening, no. Just get it over with like around noon, 1. That was my preferred. Jeff Tebbett says he should have John Molinaro, writer from TFC Republic, on the show this week. So check out Jersey Swap. Guys, that just about does it. We had a kind of a little short one this week, but when you lose on the road, not much to talk about. So final thoughts, Cliff, give us your final thought for the week.
Well, you had a heck of a heaping load of my thoughts the next morning. I was very terse. Final thought: it was great to hang with the Vanguard at Gilligan's. A lot of good people there. A fun time. When they do away games, you should go by and say hi to my friend Tom. It was a really good time. I'm not out by far with this team. The noon and outs and the oh my gosh and selling my season tickets and all the bluster that goes on, I just can't stand it. Your team is not going to be first place every time, all year, every year. To me, this is where the story takes on that deeper plot role, that subplot that makes a story a masterpiece. It is. We see Noonan turn it around. We see some tactical changes. This is the same team. They contain the 2 players who were on the top of the stat sheet for goals not too long ago. Denke and Evander were scoring like hotcakes for a while there, and they're certainly capable of doing that. So hopefully we find the chemistry. I think we will, but we better make it quick because we don't have any bottom dwellers until May when we see Orlando. So we have a lot of tough teams. So we have to do it now. And I think that's the unfortunate thing for me about this season. We're playing so many sort of teams we need to beat, and the bottom dwellers are going to get enough time to figure out why they should not be there. And so they're going to become tougher. So this overall season is going to be tough, but for me, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thanks, Cliff, and thanks for joining us tonight. Coach, hit us with your final thought.
I always said as a coach that I would rather my teams go out there and lose 4-3 because they're really going after it rather than cling to a 1-goal lead nervously for most of the match. Ultimately, the reason why we watch the sport is to be entertained. And certainly winning is more entertaining than losing. But winning 1-0 over and over again or 2-1 and feeling the whole game and like you have indigestion, like that was not a fun win, is not as good as this match where, had I been watching live, I would have been on the edge of my seat, a dozen times with near misses or with the number of chances and almost chances that the team generated. So I want the team to win more, but I also am okay that they're trying to figure it out and they're actually going for it instead of playing scared all the time. Look at the teams in the league. This is a new thing this is not the Italian league of the 90s, the Catenaccio with the defense. You have Red Bulls leaving only 2 center backs back and throwing everyone forward. Columbus under Nancy was everybody throwing forward. Vancouver, everybody goes forward. San Diego, it's like these teams wanting to use the ball to hurt their opponents and being willing to take chances to try to pull people out of position. It's more fun to watch. It's better soccer. FCC is not quite getting the better soccer part of it yet, but it is fun. If not, even though it's also gives you a lot of heartburn. So I'm trying to enjoy it while I can. And the last thing that I want to say on that is what would make me, Pat Noonan, what would make me enjoy this just a little bit more. So please, Pat, hear me. I know you're listening. Is if you would just give some players a chance to make mistakes and learn. Roll a guy like a 22-year-old like Flores out to play center back instead of the 48-year-old Nick Hagland. Roll a guy like Mboma Dem out to play in that hybrid winger midfielder role instead of your tall tree Tom Barlow center forward that you're trying to ram in there to just get him on the field. Get some guys playing and let them learn so we go into the back half of the season thinking we have solutions to these problems and not just wondering like, well, if Tom Barlow could ever figure out how to not be a center forward and play as a midfielder, maybe we'll be okay. Let's keep having fun, but let's do it in a way to where we know we're building for something in the future.
Love that.
Well said, Coach. I echo both of you all. I'm not willing to give up on this team yet. It's only 6 games and this is Major League Soccer. This isn't like, the Premier League where they've pretty much decided who's going to win after the first 6 weeks. We've got plenty of season left. I came away from this match feeling hopeful, which is not something I felt after the last match going into the break. It's not something I felt after the loss at Tigres in CONCACAF. There's a lot of good, the bones are there. There's some stuff that they can build on to be successful, and I think they can get there. I didn't expect this team to win the Shield. I didn't expect them to win the East. I picked them to finish 3rd in the East. They could finish 6th, and I'd be okay with it. So I'm not ready to give up on the team yet, but I would like to see some incremental improvements. So that's about sums it up for this week. For Cliff, for Coach, I'm Jason Ashcraft. Thank you so much for joining us on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Ciao, ciao.